today's episode of Daily Notes, we journey to a galaxy far, far away, and we say hello to your little friend. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Almost Sideways Movie Podcast. My name is Adam. These are my daily notes where I have fun conversations about films. Today's conversation does take us back to 1983. We are celebrating the 40th anniversary of two films. A first-time watch movie I've never seen before that I probably should have seen a long time ago. And we revisit a childhood favorite in Star Wars, The Return of the Jedi. The first-time watch, of course, is Al Pacino's, Brian De Palma's Scarface. I don't know why I've never watched that movie. For whatever reason, it just slipped through my fingers, slipped through the grasp. I've seen countless clips, number of times on YouTube and movie clips, and it's a quite popular scene to see for sure. So, yeah, we're going to be talking about Scarface, Star Wars, The Return of the Jedi. Really excited. Welcome to the channel. If this is your first time watching here on YouTube, if you're listening to the audio podcast, welcome as well. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can find us on Spotify, Stitcher, Pandora, Apple, anywhere you find your podcast. You guys can like, share, and subscribe there as well. But if you're here on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button as well, so we can reach out to more people out there. Usually how I do things here, because this is the first time I'm really putting it out on YouTube, trying a new format, if you will. Same style stuff, new format. So if you are watching us, make sure you guys check the show notes, so where you guys can find the two movies we're talking about today streaming, so you guys can follow along, watch those movies as well. And if you're also on YouTube, make sure you guys leave us a comment and let us know what you think about the two movies that we're discussing today's in this episode. So, all right. So our first review, I think we're going to go back to a galaxy far, far away. And of course, we are talking about Star Wars, The Return of the Jedi. Star Wars Episode 6, The Return of the Jedi. Again, celebrating its 40th anniversary. It's rated PG. It comes out at 2 hours and 11 minutes. And it is directed by Richard Marquand, and it's written by Lawrence Kasdan and George Lucas. We also see the returning stars from the previous two entries in this OG trilogy. Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, Billy D. Williams returns from Empire Strikes Back. Of course, we got Anthony Daniels, James Earl Jones, Peter Mayhew as Chewbacca. Let's see. There's so many people in this movie. I got to remember all of them. Frank Oz returns as Yoda. We got Alec Guinness back here as well. David Prowse returns as Darth Vader. We got to mention David Prowse here. Kenny Baker as well. One kind of big cast member from the prequel trilogy specifically is pretty big there. But Ian McDiarmid comes in as Palpatine in Return of the Jedi. We had previously seen... I know that when they did the re-releases, this is where it gets kind of sketchy. It's weird is that they kind of redid the guy's face from the re-releases in 1997 with McDiarmid there, but really pretty awesome stuff here. Return of the Jedi is a classic film for me. I loved this movie growing up from my childhood. I watched this, quite possibly my favorite Star Wars film that I've ever seen growing up, and I really love the OG trilogy. If you've followed me or know me, I really grew up on the Star Wars films. I got them received them for my birthday when I turned 5, and I watched them ever since. Got the action figures. My very first one came out of a box of Fruit Loops. That tells you something. But it was just a great film franchise that really kind of sparked the imagination and creativity in me growing up. And when I watched The Return of the Jedi, it was definitely the most fun that I had watching any of the other films. I wasn't really into Empire Strikes Back. That, quite frankly, growing up was my least favorite. And of course, now it's probably one of my favorite movies of all time. I really love Empire Strikes Back. I like the dark nature of the story there. But we're here to talk about Return of the Jedi, specifically this 40th anniversary. And I did watch it on Disney Plus, and I have to say, it was so fun to kind of revisit this movie after so many years. I hadn't watched Return of the Jedi, I have to say, about maybe 5 years. It's been kind of a long time. I live in a house full of girls, so I was able to talk my daughter into watching Return of the Jedi. She made it past Jabba's palace, and she's like, "Okay, I'm kind of done." I love these movies. I grew up on these movies. I'm trying to convince my kids to like them as well. So, but anyway, Return of the Jedi. If you haven't seen it for quite some time, let's hit up the synopsis on the old IMDb here. And of course, it says, after a daring mission to rescue Han Solo from Jabba the Hutt, the rebels dispatched to Endor to destroy the second Death Star. Meanwhile, Luke struggles to help Darth Vader back from the dark side. So we kick off this movie with, of course, our favorite band of rebels trying to free Han Solo out of carbonite from the previous film. So that takes us back to Tatooine, the setting of the very first film, and we get to meet the notorious gangster Jabba the Hutt. And I really liked this opening sequence here. We got some really cool, iconic sights and sounds to have here. I love the introduction of the main two characters that we see right off the bat. It's R2D2 and C3PO. They're just journeying through the desert once again, and this time their journeys take them to Jabba's palace. The whole intro to Jabba and his palace, it's eerie, it's creepy, and of course you see this giant slug-like creature that is kind of revolting. And I think my favorite Star Wars has been parodied so much, but I have to go back to Spaceballs. We have Pizza the Hut in that amazing Mel Brooks movie. So of course you get Jabba the Hutt. The Jabba the Hutt, we get to see him, which back in when I was a kid, the first time we saw Jabba the Hutt before they did the re-releases and the special editions rather. This is the very first sighting of that kind of now notorious character. Of course, like I'm kind of referring to in the special editions, they do kind of CGI him in a sequence in A New Hope. Graphically, it's not the greatest piece of CGI work, but it kind of moves the story along, and you can understand why Jabba kind of held a grudge against Han Solo for so many years. And it kind of gives you that extra layer that you kind of need when it comes to these characters. You get a little bit of extra backstory with them too. But the whole Jabba's palace sequence is really cool. You get to see Boba Fett there and his interactions with the different people. There are some stuff I don't like about this sequence because I feel like George Lucas was able to put kind of his creative power back into it and kind of change things and add different sequences. Specifically, there's a song and dance number in here that it's not really that good. I don't like it, to be honest with you. And it's just, not my cup of Jawa juice, I guess, if you will. Uh, but overall, the Jabba's palace sequence is capped off with an amazing um, entrance of Luke Skywalker here, who wants to bargain for Han Solo's life, offers up our two favorite droids here. But, Jabba does think the bait. So we go to the Sarlacc pit. The Sarlacc pit also in this sequence does kind of age here. Compared to the 40th, the original version, we didn't get to see this really kind of interesting CGI look. I kind of dig what they did, the change in this scene. It makes a more menacing character, I guess. The CGI still doesn't age all that well in the 4K kind of transition here, but I guess it does add something to the Book of Boba Fett, the TV show on Disney Plus, which I can appreciate a little bit because at least they try to tie it in together. The thing I didn't like about this sequence here is after watching this, I kind of wanted to see what happened if Boba would have stayed out or not, air quotes, like killed by the Sarlacc pit. And Book of Boba Fett not being my favorite Disney Plus TV show. I think The Mandalorian by far is pretty much everybody's favorite, but Book of Boba Fett is fine, but it kind of seems weak, especially after watching this movie, and I kind of know what is expecting with that character. Needless to say, there's some really other fun moments in here, and we have to go to Endor for our next kind of conversation piece, because a lot of the hot topic of this movie that people don't really like is the Ewoks. Now, watching here, I don't really mind it because, I think I'm nostalgic for it. As from being one of my favorite ones in the franchise for so many years, and like I said, like this was the kind of the more easily accessible movie because there's a lot of fun moments here. It moves at a pretty rapid pace. It's quick to easy to follow. You can understand where the characters' motives are. You kind of understand a lot of the characters' directions. There's a lot of action sequences here where I feel like Empire is kind of the darker and it's a little more bleak. And A New Hope, there's a bunch of introductions to the characters, so there's a lot of slow build to it. It kind of plays more of a slower westerny film, where Return of the Jedi just pops you right into that action and you know what you're getting relatively faster than the other movies. A good comparison for me is like kind of The Last Crusade in the Indiana Jones franchise. It's really easy to follow, get you right back into that action quite quickly compared to the other ones. And I actually liked Last Crusade a lot more than like films like Raiders or Temple of Doom at that time. I'm a big Raiders of the Lost Ark fan now, but kind of like the same. Kind of compare the two of trilogies in that aspect. Some things that also really excited me watching this movie is that epic space battle that Billy D. Williams as Lando Calrissian does, lead the charge of. It's a pretty awesome space battle, one of my favorites in the entire franchise. I think of other really cool space battles that the movie has given us. I think Rogue One has to be mentioned here. I think that movie deserves to have a rewatch done too, because I remember not being the biggest fan of that movie for whatever reason, but it's definitely worth a rewatch. One last thing we got to mention, of course, before we go into other little categories and topics I want to talk about this movie, the final climatic battle between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader with the temptations of dark side superiority by Emperor Palpatine. A really great backdrop to kind of the battles within from good and evil. You see the conflict and kind of Luke. He wants to try to save his father, but he's being conflicted, and he doesn't want his friends to die. And the temptation of the enemy is so sweet, and it tastes it seems so like they're offering the world to you. But Luke, with stands tall and takes down the evil forces. And even though his dad does fall at the hands of it, he does seem to redeem his father in these final moments, and it plays off so well. And I really love the John Williams score, which plays over the top of this. And this score in this movie is rather good. I really like even the songs from like the Ewok theme to the Jabba's palace music as well. John Williams does once again a great job with this Star Wars score. That it's probably one of the best trilogy scores, I would have to say, ever by a director. So that's the Lord of the Rings franchise. I can think of maybe the first three Harry Potters possibly up there. There's probably more. Godfather. I can't really speak. I haven't seen two of the Godfather films, but anyway, Star Wars. John Williams, a great movie score there. We are going to go down to the box office and the budget and all that fun talk about some financials here, of course. This movie did come out May 25th, 1983. And the budget for the movie was $32.5 million. So a pretty big estimated budget there. And the opening weekend in the States and Canada, it made $23 million at the box office in the States and Canada. The gross worldwide was $470 million. No, let's just say the whole total. $475,106,177 to be exact. And that's a lot of money, a lot of cheddar there. And of course, it's one of the biggest movies franchises of all time, especially that OG trilogy. And I remember growing up, seeing those special editions and being in the theater with my dad and like, that scene changed. So this is different. That's added. My dad's like, okay, enough. When we get it, you're a big nerd. And of course I was. I loved these movies. I grew up on them, and seeing these films on the big screen is some of my favorite movie experiences of all time. And seeing Return of the Jedi is right up there as well. I always like to talk about the awards, the Oscar nominations, or other movie awards that these films did get nominated. I do see we got a couple nominations and one win for Star Wars Return of the Jedi, the Academy Awards in 1984. It did win for Special Achievement in Visual Effects for Richard Edlund, Dennis Muren, Ken Raston, and Phil Tippett. So awesome win there for visual effects, kind of deserving. It's probably a kind of trilogy, wrapping up, get a special achievement award there. It's also nominated for Best Art Direction, Best Sound, Best Effects, Sound Effects, that is, and Best Music Original Score for John Williams. Some pretty good nominations there. No above the line nominations, no acting, no directing, no writing or picture, mind you, like A New Hope did. However, still showed up at the Oscars and got some more love than most Star Wars movies do get nowadays. So that's pretty awesome. Also got a couple BAFTA nominations. Actually, one for Best Special Effects, which is awesome. Got nominated for Best Makeup, Best Production Art Design, and Best Sound. That's interesting. Why didn't they nominate the makeup at the Academy Awards? That is a good question. Anyway, That's a conversation for a different day. Overall, Star Wars: Return of the Jedi is one of my favorite movies in this Star Wars franchise. It's probably not as high as it was when I was a kid. It's probably like top 4 or 5 right now. I haven't really done the math or the research or even the rewatches to put that out there at this current moment. But I will say for sure, this is my favorite film from 1983, and that might be a spoiler for another film that I'm talking about in this episode. It's a 3.5 star film out of 4 stars for myself. I think rewatching it now, I think there is some stuff that it is there's some conveniences that do happen, and some of the story beats are kind of iffy, and it's not as polished as I remember, but it's a very entertaining film that I thoroughly love. So it's one of my favorite movies. One of my favorite childhood memories and movies that I can remember. Star Wars: Return of the Jedi is a fantastic film that I absolutely loved from my childhood. But now it's time to talk about our very first time watch of Brian De Palma's Scarface film that also came out in 1983, celebrating its 40th anniversary. It's crazy to think that both these movies that we're talking about today came out 40 years ago. It's such an iconic movie like Scarface. It's definitely got to be talked about. So Scarface came out in 1983, and it's a 2 hour and 50-minute long runtime there. It's rated R. Of course, it stars the great Al Pacino as Tony Montana, and Michelle Pfeiffer as Elvira shows up here. We got Stephen Bayer, Mary Elizabeth Mastrant. We also have Robert Loggia, Miriam Colon, E. Murray Abraham, Paul Shiner, to name a few. And I'm really horrible at pronouncing names, so I do apologize if my tongue has slipped on your last names. I do apologize about that. But it is directed by Brian De Palma, and its writers are Oliver Stone wrote the screenplay. And of course, this is based off the 1932 film, so we get some uncredited screenplay credits here too for Howard Hawks and Ben Height from that 1932 Scarface original film. And if you haven't seen this movie in a long time, it basically takes place in 1980s Miami. Determined Cuban immigrant takes over a drug cartel and succumbs to greed, of course, as they always do. Now, I haven't seen this movie ever until a couple days ago, and I wanted to sit on my thoughts because I feel like if I talk too soon about it, I might, not sound really great. And I know this is an iconic movie that a lot of people do love, and one of Brian De Palma's best movies too in his filmography. And I don't know why I never watched it. And like I said, I have seen that clip on YouTube and other movies thousands of times before. The Say Hello to My Little Friend. It's an iconic piece of cinema history. It's an iconic scene. It's even on the Daily Notes little intro. If you're listening to on the podcast, you would catch it there as well. And it's pretty remarkable as well. So, Scarface, and what did I think about Scarface? First off, the direction by Brian De Palma, he really captures that Cuban feel, I feel, in Miami at that time. It definitely is an 80s movie, it has that vibe and kind of charisma and machismo that you would kind of get from these 1980s movies about these guys who were kind of manly men, I guess, and they would go over and try to take over stuff. So I think Al Pacino also kind of embodies the feel of this movie. Super charismatic guy. He has a crazy accent here, but who cares? It's Al Pacino as this cartel leader, a Scarface. He's swinging charisma left and right and getting women that he wants to. It's a very entertaining performance. Maybe not my favorite Pacino performance, but it is highly entertaining. He has everything going for him. He's larger than life in this movie, and it definitely shows by his outing as Tony Montana. Even though Al Pacino is so great, I don't think his performance would be nearly as good if he didn't have great supporting characters around him. Specifically, who I really liked a lot here was Stephen Bayer. I think he gives a really good setup performance that doesn't overshadow Pacino's crazy machismo that he does, but also he's still just as charismatic as Pacino, but he's not as flashy or as vibrant or as bold or in your face, I should say. That's probably the better word, as what Montana is doing here. Stephen Bayer does a really cool job here, and there's a lot to do. And I kind of wish I would have seen more of what he is able to do, because I think he was super talented. And I probably have seen some movies that he had done. We might take a look at that. But Michelle Pfeiffer also looks stunning as always here, especially 80s Pfeiffer is amazing. Of course, a lot of people, my first experience with Pfeiffer was Batman Returns. It came out in 1992. the Tim Burton classic film. She played Catwoman. It's an iconic movie. I'm saying iconic quite a bit in this review, but anyway, it's an iconic performance from Pfeiffer in Batman Returns. But she's really good in this one as well. She doesn't have as much to do. She's not as showy or as her previous movies I have mentioned. But it's really cool to see Pfeiffer here. I didn't really actually realize that was her because maybe I hadn't seen anything pre-90s, so probably a good possibility there. So she didn't look like Michelle Pfeiffer at first, but now when I see on IMDb she's in there, of course it's her, right? So Scarface for me is a very entertaining watch. It is highly. There's a lot of really cool, high functioning scenes here that really play really well for the first time watching. It might not be my favorite movie about the cartel or this era, and I think part of that is because the pacing of it for me, it seemed kind of uh, dragged a little bit in the middle. And again, this is my first time watching, mind you. So I think if I watch it again, I kind of know what I'm expecting. I think in my head, when you see an iconic movie that's beloved, and we have people on our website who've given it like 4 stars, and I'm here like, okay, I've never seen it, let's go watch it. And I'm like, that was good. But is it like, am I missing something? It's a great, I think it's super entertaining. And it's one that I definitely want to watch again because I think Pacino is electric in here. And again, I like Stephen Bayer too. There's really a lot of cool things. Like my favorite scene that I can think of other than the iconic scenes that you have seen is there's a scene here where they go and they have to try to get some money after this guy and they have switch some products, and Pacino's feeling this guy out and he's feeling him out. Eventually tables turn on Pacino and his brother, and there's a chainsaw involved. There's some torture going on. It is straight up bonkers. And I love that shootout and how everything had turned out. I was like, oh, we're in for a ride here. And this movie definitely takes you on a ride. I think Brian De Palma does a really good job with his direction here. And uh, it is such a piece of cinema because he's known for this movie. And you know what, we're going to take a little Brian De Palma detour on here because I can't really picture him other movies that he's attached to. So let's take a look at it. I think, is that one of the first times that you're like a director, you can't think of anything else that he's done of note, but you just know like without even watching the movie, like, yeah, that is a Scarface's director. But Brian De Palma, we're looking at his IMDb filmography here. Okay, he has a 2006 movie named Black Dahlia, which I've kind of always wanted to see. I heard mixed things about it. I've seen the 2000 Mission to Mars, Snake Eyes, the Nicolas Cage movie, and there it is right there, Mission Impossible. I totally forgot that he directed Mission Impossible in 1996. The Carlito's Way is another movie that I have not seen. 1993, I might have to make that happen because that's going to be an interesting first-time watch as well. That's Untouchables. Yeah. Yeah, it's a movie I missed last year, 1987, Untouchables. Yeah, so he's did some bangers of movies there. I really like Mission Impossible. Mission Upon Mars. I saw that when I was a kid, so that was the only other movie that I'd seen. So now I've seen 3 De Palma films: Mission Impossible, Mission to Mars, and Scarface, of course. I think if I had to rank those 3 films just off merit alone, Scarface would have to be up there as my favorite one, then Mission Impossible and Mission to Mars. Definitely interested to see more of his works because I think he does bring a creative energy and vibe to his movies. I definitely feel highly energetic. But like I said, it has that vibe during some sequences for me. I do feel like it does drag a little bit. Again, I definitely I feel like I need to see this movie again because the third act is bonkers nuts. I think there's sequences in the first act that I really love as well. It's that middle act for whatever reason. I just like there was like a 45 minutes. There's like, okay, I want to see some more. This is kind of a lot of good build up for his character in it of Tony Montana. I get the thing. I want to see some of those iconic sequences. And that's probably my head. It's like I gotta get another watch in there because maybe my expectations maybe were a little higher than probably, man, I should have made them. It's still a really good, entertaining movie. And I think I'm at 3 stars for this movie right now. I think it's in my top 5 films of 1983. But let's go to that box office and budget to talk about the financials of this movie like we do every episode. This movie did come out December 9th, 1983. So right at Oscar season there. Funny enough, I don't think it got any Oscars. Awkward. But the budget here is $25 million. And the opening weekend in US and Canada alone, it made $45,408,703. So it made its budget and $20 million more over budget. So that's amazing there. Oh, no, wait. I am totally reading the wrong line. They did not make that much money at opening weekend. That's how much it made in the States overall. Opening weekend here came out this was 4,597,000. That's a big number. That's a big difference there. So the opening weekend in US and Canada was $4,597,536. Gross worldwide, though, is $65,804,703. So it did make its budget. It probably had some of that time with Al Pacino's name attached to it and that iconic performance there. Again, it is a top-rated movie on IMDb at number, I think, what was it? I don't remember. I missed it. I skipped past it. Let's go take a look. IMDb has it as a top-rated movie at number 107 on their rating scale here, so really high up there. I'm looking at the awards, and it has 8 nominations overall. The Golden Globes had nominated this movie for Best Performance by an Actor in a Motion Picture Drama for Al Pacino. Best Performance by an Actor in a Supporting Role Motion Picture, Stephen Bayer. And Best Original Score by Giorgio Moroder. Anyway, really awesome score that I forgot to mention. But yeah, the score was really good. It's really kind of gets that kind of feel going as well. So I really liked that. The motion picture sound editors did nominate this movie for best sound editing and sound effects. But funny enough, Razzie Award nominated movie here. And this is interesting. Brian De Palma, worst director nomination at the Razzies. Very interesting take there, Razzies. Would not have suspected that to be a nomination for you guys. But anyway, that is my quick takes on Scarface. Really enjoyed this. All right, guys. Well, that's my quick thoughts on Star Wars for the Jedi and Scarface. Both came out in 1983, celebrating their 40th anniversary. Pretty great, pretty good movies there. I really liked both of them. I think, like I said, Scarface. I said this a couple times. I definitely want to watch that again. It made me really want to watch it again because I felt like, am I missing something? Is there something bigger and grander? And I think I would probably appreciate it even more that second time watching it. So I'm really excited for future watches of that movie. And of course, I'm a big Star Wars fan, so I'm going to watch Return of the Jedi again. All right, next week's episode, big episode. It's my birthday weekend. It's my birthday. This episode should be next week's episode should be dropping on February 11th, which, yeah, it's my birthday. Pretty excited about it. So we're going to go be all nostalgia on you. We are doing a first-time watch of Johnny Depp's film Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Really excited for that episode. I bought the Criterion. And we're also going to try to do a rewatch of Rush Hour. But that's not why I'm excited for it. Because on my birthday in 1998, mind you, this is a 1998 episode, I watched a little movie called Spice Girls. No, I watched a little movie called Spice World. Really excited to revisit Spice World. I bought it on DVD. I found it on Amazon somehow. And yeah, it's going to happen. I am so excited for that watch. So stay tuned for that. And again, thank you so much for your support. If you guys would like to see videos of this review here, make sure you guys check the show notes. You can follow us on YouTube and join the conversation in the comment section over there and just give us a subscribe. We would really appreciate to grow that YouTube channel with our clips of this audio podcast as well. Until next time, guys, my name is Adam, and I'll see you at the movies. Bye.